All right, the meeting has been called to order at 4:30. Roll call, please.
Yes, Director Weber.
Here.
President Costa
Here.
and Director Rice is absent. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So we have one consent item, show action summary minutes. Any questions?
No.
First,
I have no questions.
We first have to call for public comment.
Oh, I'm
No, I
sorry.
don't. Yes.
I was in a hurry here. Sorry about
Yes,
that. All
sir.
right. Public opportunity to discuss matters of public interest within the committee scope, including items on or not on the agenda. Do we have any public comment?
I have no speaker cards. Anyone online wishing to make a public comment, please use the raise your hand feature. No public comments. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thanks for getting us back on track there, Marnie. All right, consent agenda.
I do not have any questions, and if you do not, then move to motion to move.
All right, second. We have a first and a second. Roll call, please.
Yes, Director Weber.
Aye, yay, aye. Sorry, I've got.
That's okay. President Costa.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes. Consent calendar is adopted.
All right, thank you. So go to presentation and discussion items. So our first item is classification and compensation study to Chief Human Resources Officer Melissa Maddox. Hello.
Good evening, directors, Chief Mitchell. So tonight I was hoping to have a final contract to talk about, but so far I only have the proposal still. We were running it past both sides through legal and their legal are still kind of going back and forth on the final contract for the compensation study. Hopefully we'll have that really soon and I can provide a report at the next meeting. But I do have the proposal and it should, the final contract should be somewhat similar to the original proposal. So as you know, we're going with Gallagher for the compensation study. They used to be Coffin Associates, so they've been in business for well over 40 years. They mainly focus on public agencies. So our plan is to start with the captain rank in the 522 and then EMT and paramedic. And their original quote had quoted that as just for the compensation study to take about 5 weeks. So we wanted them to do that one first before they moved on to all the other positions, just to get those ones done and out of the way for negotiations. So those, we'll start with those and then move on to the rest of the positions. And we want to do it in 2 phases. So phase 1 will just be the compensation study piece. So we'll get through the captain, EMT, and paramedic, move on to all the rest of the classifications, all the day staff, basically. That'll be phase 1. And then phase 2 will be the classification study where there's more of a deep dive down into job descriptions and structure and staffing levels, that kind of thing for all the divisions. So that piece does take a little bit longer. So we figured we'd split it up in 2 phases and at least get the comp side done and then move on to the classification. Cause like I said, that's going to take a little bit longer. The overall comp study. So phase 1, that should take about 4 months total. But like I said, the captain, EMT, and paramedic should take about 5 weeks. The classification study, depending on when we start it, should take about 6 months. Like I said, it is a pretty extensive process, may require individual meetings with individual employees if they want to know want to dive deeper into their job description and make sure the job descriptions actually match their actual duties. So that does take some time scheduling those meetings, and all along the way, they're going to be in constant contact with human resources, and I'll provide updates as we move through the process. So most important part, I guess, the proposal still stands at $78,100 for the comp study and then $102,000 for the classification study. So that's a total of $180,000 and some change. As you know, we did budget $200,000 in this year's budget for that. So it is covered with that. Other than that, I don't have any other updates. Unless you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
All right, thank you. Any questions?
No. Did she mention how long it would take before we get the contract?
Yeah, so you said we're in the process of getting the contract now.
I'm hoping in the next week or 2.
How many
Yeah.
weeks?
Yeah, it's went back and forth a couple times already, so I'm hoping this is the last back and forth.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then it starts at that point. So let's say 2 weeks, then it's 4 months and 6 months. Okay.
Yeah, and we can overlap the classification if we get to a point in the compensation part, the 4 months, where they think they can start the classification, we'll get that started as soon as possible. So there could be some overlapping on that part.
Okay. And,
Yeah.
and correct me, I can't remember when we previously discussed it. Was it an 8-month turnaround?
Total, just depends when we start, yeah.
Okay, but now
Yeah.
it's a 10-month turnaround.
If we're doing them stacking, but if we
Stacking,
can
but if we can-
overlap,
they-
then
okay.
it'll be shorter.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
right. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
And just to confirm, so it's all classifications, and I think
Yes.
there was some requests to consider board as part of that. So that's still part of the package.
It
to move
is,
forward.
yes.
Okay,
And all day staff, all classifications represented and unrepresented. It's every position that the district has.
okay. And outside of interviews with staff, depending on some clarification, will staff have an opportunity to provide feedback in this
Yes.
process?
Yes, once we get this contract finalized, we'll invite them to the board to kind of do their initial presentation. We haven't worked out the details of that yet, but we will, there'll definitely be more to come for sure.
And then outside board, have you received any feedback to date from members of the organization? Any concerns that we should be aware of?
As far as individual positions, I have kind of a running list.
Okay, so we are
just-
tracking against that.
Yeah, definitely. Since we had done a similar one a couple years ago, only for the unrepresented group, we kind of have an idea of where we need to have a little bit more focus in different divisions, and then some requests from 522 to look at too. So,
Okay, perfect.
Yep.
Thank you.
Good work. Thank you.
Any questions? Any other questions? No. Thank you very much.
You're
Great
welcome.
work.
Thank you.
All right, so we'll go to strategic planning update. And we have our Chief Development Officer, Jeff Fry. Thank you, Jeff.
Good afternoon, directors. So again, here for an update on the strategic plan. I will do a little background. Coming out of the board workshop, we had identified a number of follow-up items that we wanted to accomplish after the workshop happened. After some dialogue, I believe President Costa has some dialogue with the Weiss Group. I have as well, about what was remaining in the work to be performed and the scope and the contract. We have since learned that the original scope is complete under that contract. So if we wanted the Weiss Group to continue, we would need to write a new contract to continue the work on the strategic plan. So I would call the strategic plan as we have today a very good outline, but I would not call it a final document. So the question remains, how do we complete the assignment? So I've made some assumptions on my part. The first one is being that this is not a complete document, that there is still work to be done. And the end product would be professional, reflective of this organization, on par with some of the larger fire departments that we see in the state. And so doing some homework, I've reviewed CAL FIRE's strategic plan, Los Angeles Department, and have an idea and a vision what this should look like, but accomplishing the things that are specific to Metro Fire through the discussions at the workshop and then subsequent conversations. So as I mentioned, started doing the homework, trying to think about what an outline looked like, picking people's brains. And I would like to propose an alternative recommendation. Metro Fire is long contracted with a group, and you may know them. We generally refer to them as Jose and Jerry. The official name of the organization is Integrated Comms. They do a number of services, crisis communications, but they have more recently leaned into strategic planning. In talking with them, we meet with them once a month, I believe, and talk to them about a wide number of issues. And we started having the conversation about a new strategic plan and the board's intent to produce this document, which actually led to a great conversation. They do this work for a number of agencies in the Sacramento Valley, including most recently the city of Sacramento, and between their council and the city staff. They have worked with the Comm Center and a number of other public agencies doing this work. So we need help to get this done, and it would certainly be nice to have a professional group working with the board to get to that final product we talked about. So my recommendation would be to talk to them, find out what board expectations would be and how we get the product. I think they have a general idea of where we want to go and board's intent. But sure that that's from the staff lens, right? So I think it should be a direct conversation with the executive committee. So I will stop there. I do have a couple of recommendations, but like to hear your thoughts and comments.
Perfect. Thank you. Director Weber.
Thank you, Jeff. The first question is, do you have everything you need from the Weiss Group? Or do you see any value in continuing or rewriting a new contract with them for any reason?
I do not.
Okay, so done. Other than that, yeah, I would like to see your outline, and maybe have a discussion with you at some point off of this dais, but to see what your outline looks like, what the guide looks like as far as all the information we've given you. I know that we've had a conversation personally recently and got an item cleared up. I think it was crystal clear. If it was not, let me know now and we'll have that conversation again.
Crystal clear.
Okay. Other than that, yeah, I'll wait to have a conversation with you and see what you have. And then we can, or I can formulate a thought and this committee can, and then the whole board can as well. So thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you. I would say, in regards to your question, as far as this proposed alternative, I support it. I think we need to give you the resources you need to complete the board's direction on the strategic plan.
Okay.
So I'd say let's move forward with that. You mentioned an outline and then them coming to the board or exec committee.
So I have two recommendations. One would be we could bring them to the next meeting and you could have a conversation directly with them. And you can get a flavor for direction on where to go. The second alternative would be for President Costa, for you to meet with them, not in chambers, but just to have a general conversation about how we can work together to move forward. I will say here that it probably makes sense at this point in time. Strategic planning should be an ongoing effort. And to have consultants come in, do a workshop, disappear for 5 years and come back is now problematic, especially with how much we rely on a continuous development with the board to make Metro Fire better. Having a continuous president is going to be important moving forward. So those are my two recommendations. Happy to set up whichever one you prefer.
Feedback?
Now, without violating any laws, can the entire exec be in that conversation?
It would have to be in these
Have to
chambers
be,
to do
yeah.
it. Mhm.
More than one of the execs.
It has to be an agendized meeting,
However,
public.
if we have one of the execs and any of the other board members at that meeting, that would be fine.
Mm,
If a total of three.
yeah, I would say not if it's a quorum, but
So
total of-
what
yeah.
you're saying is yes, we can. Okay. As long as it's not a quorum. Got it. Thank you.
Yeah.
But again, I would like to sit with you sometime early next week and take a look what you have. I know Director Costa's got some information as well. And so he and I'll have some personal conversations, and then either you and I'll have a personal conversation or we'll have it in chambers.
Sure.
So, thank you.
As far as the suggested next step, so Bob, you're
we
okay
don't
with
know.
one of those alternatives?
Yep.
Is there a particular recommendation?
I'm fine with entertaining the conversation with the group that you had said to come in and have a conversation either with yourself or in chambers to see what they have to offer and what they've done in the past, some of their body of work with other departments. I'd like to see what that looks like, and then how it fits in with here with Metro Fire. But yes, I would entertain that proposal.
So if I could, I think it would be prudent, just given the timing we have, to meet with them quickly and then bring them back to the next executive committee between now and then. So then if it works, Jeff, you and I can work with them to sit down and just have a conversation, then we can bring them back to the exec. Does that work for you guys?
Perfect.
Okay. And then just to confirm, it's a resource we currently have.
Yes.
We're going to be leveraging current resources to support you. Outside of that, is there something else that you need?
No, not at this time.
Okay. And then Chief, is there anything that you need? as
No,
it relates-
it's important, and he mentioned it, and we've talked about it, that ongoing communication and having that extra set of hands per se with the number of staff hours that goes into this. I think that's a really positive thing to have this engaged. As you mentioned, they are already somebody we work with.
Mhm.
So having that ongoing real-time strategic planning, monitoring, and again, it's a plan, we can change it. I think that's going to be a difference maker going into this next session. So thanks to
Perfect.
Jeff for the work they do. Appreciate the direction when we hear you. We will just need to confirm, and I think it's fine with the quorum piece. Director Weber, to your point, we'll confirm that. If there is an issue, we'll let you know, but we got enough to keep moving forward and get that meeting going. So thank you.
Perfect. And if I may, so we bring them on, we'll have a couple meetings. What do you see as the time frame? Are we waiting for them to kind of give us some feedback on that, what that might look like?
Yes.
Okay.
And I will tell you, these documents are very stylized, very visual. They're intended to be on websites and referenced by the public. So that would be my main concern from a content perspective. I think we have what we need.
Okay.
Designing the document, I would need to ask about skill sets.
Okay, very good. I just want to make sure you have what you need and
Yes.
we're still driving towards a particular date.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
As soon as possible.
Yeah,
That's the date.
yeah. Well, of course. All right, any other questions on the strategic plan? Any other feedback from Chief or Jeff? No, we're good. So I think this,
you.
it really goes well into the next item. So the
Right.
next item is around our board goal number 4, strengthen and expand communications. And if I may, before I hand it over to you, Jeff, so I think the board has been very clear through that process and in other comments during board meetings around strengthening our communication. The last exec meeting, you guys presented some opportunities for us to give some feedback. So now you're coming back with where we're at and then those next steps. And so this is really a great opportunity for us to have a conversation, really lean in, give some feedback. And so I would encourage others in the room, if you have some thoughts, please raise your hand or come forward. Again, the only way we do a great job is to be well-informed. The only way to be well-informed is through this process. So please speak up. So with that, communication is a big piece. So Jeff, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, so great summary. We do have enough through the rough draft and with the executive committee direction from last month to get started. As you mentioned, the executive committee identified 4 projects related to the strategic plan in the strengthen and expand communication space. So we took that back to executive staff and started discussing how we're going to break up the work. And what we agreed is that I would take 2 of the projects and Chief Mitchell would take 2 of the projects. And we would start working together, make sure that they are correlated, but obviously with 2 of us working on it, the work will go quicker. I will be taking project number 1, which is the board executive, executive staff communications project. Chief Mitchell will be taking project number 2 and 3, which are labor management communications, and the executive staff to member communications. And then project number 4 is our external engagement strategy. So as I mentioned, we've had time to think about best practices, look back on the board guidance that we have from the strategic plan, and think about how do we ensure that we capture intent, right? So our approach with this executive committee is to break up each project into 4 phases, and we would like to ask and check in with the executive committee at each phase. So those phases are going to be define the problem, define success, create the solution, and you'll hear me call that sometimes a work plan, and then implementation of the plan, which is ultimately where we're trying to get. So tonight we want to focus on very briefly getting intent around defining a problem and defining success. And we'll get that input from you all today, the direction, and we'll start to incorporate that into next steps. So that's where we're at in our approach to the projects. If there are no questions, we can start jumping into the projects themselves.
Perfect. 1 second. Any questions, Director
I'd
Weber?
like to hear the projects themselves, but thank you. I want to hear the projects themselves and where we're at, but I do have some comments in
Sure.
this field. So
And we'll have questions.
Thank you, Jeff.
Sure. So I'll start with project number 1, board executive staff. Just some thoughts on defining the problem, defining successes. We have started, one of the things that we did get from ICS is using these documents to capture intent. Once we capture the information, these are documents we intend to send to the executive committee once that they're finalized.
Perfect.
So with that, we do have our notes. So for the problem statement related to executive staff, board communications, information I received from the dais the last couple of years is that effectively the executive staff has a reactive communication style, not a proactive communication style. And that results in delayed awareness of the board and what I call emerging issues, inconsistent information flow, and avoidable what is actually a defined term in communication with board is surprise moments. So basically what we would be trying to capture is to make sure that we were proactively communicating with the board, that the board was never surprised by information, and that the information was related to emerging trends. So when I say emerging trends, typically what you'll hear staff people say is the point of governance is to control the budget and policy. After doing some best homework, that's not exactly true. There are other things that the board should be made aware of according to the no surprise rule. So if I were to define a project or the problem and the purpose statement, the purpose is to create a proactive communication process that's needed to ensure the board receives timely, accurate, and context-rich information that it supports effective governance and strengthens organizational accountability. So that is my define the problem statement. If you have thoughts or questions.
Any questions?
Well, just to clear up my own pea brain here, but that's exactly what we've been talking about as far as having a goal. How are we going to meet that goal? What's the timeline of that goal? And having you report back to the board on whatever the projects are. You're saying the exact same thing that a layperson can understand it, but that's exactly what the direction we had given you. So fantastic with that. Yeah, we want to be made aware of anything that might be coming before the board, before Aaron gives us a presentation on it.
Mhm.
We'd like to know, the nuts and bolts of it and the why of where we are right now. So that's going to be very, very helpful and appreciate the work on that. So thank you.
I'll just say really quick. I think it's, as Director Weber said, it's right on with board direction and where the executive committee has been talking. It really meets the intent of the strategic plan, which is we identified gaps. You've taken the time to really define what those gaps are and a solution. So thank you.
With that, I'll go to define success. So we do not have in the new outline for the board strategic plan, we do not have a definition of success for this particular project. So I've taken a stab at it and I will just broadly suggest that when we are proactively communicating through proper channels, I'll call them formal communications, which are board meetings, and informal communications as needed, that we would see the number of requests for information from the board go down and the number of proactive communications around an emerging trend go up. So I would suggest that's a very simple metric to measure success in the board communications.
I think that's right on. Yeah, perfect.
So with that, I'll stop there. We'll take that information and continue on to get to the nuts and bolts to Director Weber's point, is actually developing the plan and what that means in real terms. So with that, I will stop there on project one.
Sorry, quick question. So are there resource needs or support for you on this one?
Not at this time.
Not at this time. Chief, anything on your end?
No, I know getting this clarity is very important. So we appreciate that and confirming and really on all four of these projects, we don't want to get in front of you all. We don't want to make assumptions. And so any specifics that you can provide or examples will help us set those metrics. We have some of them from the strategic planning workshop that were identified there and we wrote them down. But if there's additional specifics, and one thing that I came to mind, especially with the board communications, we have the future agenda list, right? The items are listed there. If I'm hearing you correctly, it's more in depth about what those are with some different communications.
Yes,
Is that as an example?
Yep.
Okay.
Director
And
Weber?
And along with that, exactly what you're looking at, what you're thinking of in terms of what you're working on, opposed to us just going,
we think
I think I want this project and
Yeah.
somebody wants that project. But if we can get what you are actually working on, and then we can dovetail into that, we may have some
Priority
independent
changes. Or,
yeah, independent thoughts or
Perfect.
priorities with that. But that would be very helpful to know, okay, at least what is your ground floor starting on these projects?
That
would be helpful.
That's exactly. So we're not guessing, right? I mean, that's the intent is if we're working on something that doesn't meet the intent of the strategic plan or board priorities, that kind of feedback's important. So I think we have enough here to start. And so to the priority part of this is we're listening and going through these four. One of the requests or the asks we're having tonight is to make sure we're getting priorities based off of these four in the communication space too. So as you're thinking about that and we're going through them, please have that in the back of your mind so you can give us that feedback as well.
Okay.
And some of it's going to take time, right? I mean, this problem didn't develop overnight, but we're definitely putting some work in and doing it differently, which we appreciate. So thank you.
I just
Thank
don't
you.
want to see that 2 weeks from now, you've put a ton of work into this.
Right.
And then you come back, and no, that's not even close to
Right.
what we're doing.
Yeah. And frankly, we've done that before. We like to do a lot and not talk about it. It's just happening. Right. And so that's where we're trying to be different about this. And, all transparency, getting into this area, we started to do more work and it was, wait a minute, let's make sure we bring it back to confirm this is the space that we heard. We wrote it down. We think we got it right, but we're getting that feedback so we cannot do exactly what you're saying. So we appreciate that.
So far, you're right on target. So appreciate
Excellent.
that. Thank you.
Great
Okay.
work. And so, sorry, before we move to the next one, just to confirm, so this is the board and executive staff communication process.
It'll actually extend beyond that.
Okay.
So my intent, this is where I am a little bit ahead.
Mhm.
But I will tell you, my intent would be we have lots of board meetings.
Yes.
We have agenda specific ad hocs, the general board meeting, this meeting. We have lots of reports.
Mhm.
My intent would be to define what topics go where and how that's communicated back to the general board, to have a dialogue and to make sure, to Director Weber's point, is to make sure that part of that dialogue includes the fire chief and deputy chief reports.
Perfect.
Proactive communication. With that, utilizing the director's comment period at the end of the general meeting to ask clarifying questions or ask for additional information. So the better that we are communicating through the board meeting structure and our report outs, and the less the board members are asking for information or specific presentation and comments, would be what I would want to measure. There's an informal piece to that, but that's where I see this going.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for walking us through that. That meet, Director Weber?
Yeah, just-
Okay.
One other thing is, again, there's a lot of information that comes at us
Yes.
from your office, from
Yes.
finance. And to sit through a 10 to 12-minute presentation and actually form an intelligent thought on that without, because you're trying to listen in notes. And that's why I say, if we get this information early on so we can digest it, then we can have notes before your presentation. That would be extremely helpful for me individually, and I think the entire board. We can hear your presentation and then make sense of it because of what we've already done our own homework on. If
I'll
that
work
makes
that.
sense to you.
I'll work that in.
But for now, it's really just making sure we're on track and we're not, you're getting what you need from us.
Mhm.
Perfect. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Director.
Okay, so second project, I've got number 2 and 3 out of the 4. So the second project that we heard last meeting in regards to labor and management communications, very broadly, the intent is to improve the relationship and communication. So the focus statement or what we heard and wrote down was how the executive staff and local 522 interact with each other as one part of that. And the second part would be how we communicate out to the membership or the workforce to not create confusion or differences, or even one side having a lack of information out and one side having information out. So the purpose to that would be to create a predictable engagement, how the interactions occur, clearer expectations from you all on what those look like, and maybe even some details on that. And then ultimately the consistent messaging going out to the membership through different modalities, not just one way of doing it, but how that looks, so that we're standing united. And then the scope would be to include defining how those interactions expectations look, identifying what topics are ready for workforce communication. Some areas there, whether it's when they're done, when we're talking about them. We did hear some feedback last time about a dashboard and things like that, that we don't want to, again, we don't want to jump to the end before we deal with and confirm this. And then the clarification of the joint versus management messaging areas, right? When we talk about who's responsible for what and how we talk and what we talk about. So I have a couple of questions in addition to that, but I'll stop there just to make sure this is, again, a draft. So your input on it, are we hearing that correctly? And are we going in the right direction in this space? Is there more detail there that you'd like to add?
Director Weber?
Yes, and you're on target as far as getting the right players in the room, 522 management, senior management, and maybe the exec board with the union. And I know that's been a challenge in the past, to say the least, but whether they're a monthly meeting, a quarterly meeting, having 522 agree to a meeting schedule, both sides either keeping those meeting dates or saying, no, we can't make that one because my dog died, whatever the situation is, we need to have a much stricter uniformity as far as the team members actually showing up and trying to get not a quarterly meeting, but a monthly meeting going again.
Okay.
I know there's opposition to that, but if you sit on things for 3 months, I just don't see that as a proactive approach.
A lot happens in
That
3 months.
There's a lot of moving parts with that. I know we've all had private conversations about this, but it's imperative that we get aligned again.
Okay.
It's extremely important to the entire board that we repair that relationship, or not repair, but shore it up, if you will.
Strengthen.
There you go, strengthen.
Okay. Thank you.
So if I may, so Director Weber, I think it sounds like you've identified a potential problem and a potential solution to that, right? So if I may, so part of this is how do we communicate better, and it's meeting more often. So I just want to make sure, okay. And so to ensure that we're meeting more often and it's productive, we want to make sure we have a process for getting information both ways. So we have an agenda, we've identified both sides, provide that feedback. And as Director Weber had indicated, this is a big focus for the board. And as such, I mean, the board needs to be very focused and involved.
Okay.
So how I think the process we just described on the first item will help us get there. But please keep us informed so we can lean in when necessary.
Okay.
But again, it's between, management and our labor partners. And we want to make sure you guys all have what you need to be successful.
That's great. Thank you.
And on that, if I may.
Yep.
Does anybody else have any thoughts or feedback on this? Director Stark.
I believe what we directed was that we expect that there'd be monthly meetings and that the chief would be in attendance and that labor would be there. And so we need to make sure that that happens so that there's a constant communication to work through issues. Like you said, I agree with you 100%. If you're waiting 3 months, it's too long because then things fester and get out of control before they need to be.
Okay, perfect.
Can I
Thank you.
answer him?
Director Weber. Yeah.
All right. That was the agreement. The board gave that direction, but I don't think both parties are adhering to that, is all I'm saying.
We need to discuss that with them.
So I'd say we have comments coming. So
He's here.
do you want to come?
You want to comment on that? Thank you.
Came in the back. We're totally open for communication. We did have the monthly meetings, for example, labor management, where we're on a quarterly basis, but we agreed in the value of attending the monthly basis. When we stopped doing that was because of a lack of attendance. So we were unwilling at that point to keep creating more time away from our families to the members involved when we weren't seeing that attendance being reciprocated. So totally on board with doing monthly meetings. We can do bi-weekly, whatever is needed, but we will lean on you to have that other piece of attendance for the decision makers and the leadership to be there so that there is value in those meetings.
So
Okay.
just clarifying, management has not met the burden is what I'm hearing you say?
Correct. There's been an inconsistency in the attendance.
All right.
From-
And that is something we need to work on and focus as well. I was unaware of that. Thank you.
Communication when those are attended by whoever's there we've been able to communicate and some things get going, but what's missing is when one area needs to be addressed, that decision maker's not in attendance, and that hinders the progress. So we have multiple meetings where we talk about the things, but the one piece to the puzzle for the decision piece is gone, and it just kind of drags out things.
So can I ask a question?
Yeah.
We prepare an agenda ahead of time. We
Absolutely.
identify those issues.
Yeah,
ahead of
and
time.
those agendas, we can provide them. They've been repeating agendas because
sure.
from previous meetings.
And so you guys provide, we provide, and we align on an agenda.
Mhm.
And then we have other issues that get in the way of attendance.
Correct.
Okay. But I mean,
The process is there,
okay.
you
good,
know, and good work can get done if the attendance is there.
Okay. So really the only issue is the attendance part. But we can work on that.
Yeah, I think
Part of what-
knowing that the agenda and the items that are on there will drive that. Obviously, like you said, things come up and we can adjust to that. But I'm glad to hear you say that, Captain Overlander, about the attendance being important, an agenda item that needs to be discussed, a decision or a conversation happens, and then we get moving on to the next is really important. So to get those, that's part of what this would be, is this ground rules of having that conversation and making sure we're meeting those metrics would be a metric of success, I would say. I don't want to get too far, but if we have an agenda with a specific area that needs to be discussed, all parties involved are in the room so we can talk about it, come up with a resolution or a continuance if needed to continue to move things forward, and then ultimately communication about what those outcomes are out to the membership.
Perfect.
And,
Yeah.
and you were asking for direction. That's exactly the direction
Perfect.
that we're giving you right now. Fix the attendance piece, and just like the other negotiations that are going on, set the agenda, whatever the agenda is, but have the right people, as we have
Yeah.
with 522. We don't have to have 15 people from 522 in the room. If we have the agenda set, okay, now we have the specific people. You do the same thing on your end. That's exactly what this is, we're
Great.
talking about. So thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
Sorry, I have another question for you. Any other thoughts on how we can improve the process?
I think the first step is the attendance.
Okay.
That will streamline the process. The communication piece, I think both sides, we have the ability to communicate. We both have the objectives to make things better here. It's just when certain players are not in the room that are based off the decisions that are needed to be made that day.
Okay.
It just hinders the process.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. But if we all agree
Yep.
to a cadence of meetings and set agenda ahead of time, we should address that
Absolutely.
main issue. Okay.
Fantastic. We'll
Thank you for
connect
taking
more
this.
on that for sure. Sorry, President Costa, but
Yeah, yeah. Go ahead.
I think the other part to that I would say is an option or an opportunity for us is to, as we discuss items, and I believe Director Rice mentioned it last time, like a status, so that we don't, if somebody is not at a meeting and then it comes up again, we know that it's been dealt with, so that we can track items
Yeah.
and provide those updates so that when things are addressed or are decided, that we're moving, we're not always looking back about, hey, did we finish that? It's, yeah, this one's good. We can go to the next, communicating that together and then continue to move forward. I think that's a really healthy place to be. And I would say that's another opportunity for us to make sure we capture and how we're going to move forward here.
Thank you. Thank you for coming up here.
Did you just come back from DC as well?
I did. I got back at midnight last night.
Thank you very much for showing up today with
Yeah.
your boots dragging.
It was a good trip,
Thank you.
but I'll be leaving here shortly. I got to get home to the family. They haven't seen me for a week. so-
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So Chief, do you have what you need to move forward on that item?
Yeah, and I heard what we needed to hear. And one of my questions was just the interactions is part of it, and then how we communicate out, and then that conversation allowed us enough to be able to move forward. So thank you.
Good.
Good. Okay.
And then as part of that, I think you mentioned kind of the tracking part. So I think
Yeah.
it's going to be important.
As items come up,
yeah, I mean-
we make sure we're keeping them out there and open, transparent and communicating, which ties into Project 3, but yeah.
Yes, yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I think it's important that we're tracking the work, so we're not moving back, we're moving forward. And I know that's not what's happening. I'm just, as I say that, and then it's important for the board to know what we've talked about, what we've committed to on both sides, because it's gonna take both sides, and then that we're moving forward. So I
Yeah,
appreciate it.
and I think the awareness and I still hear, like, there are times when people can't make it.
Sure.
We want to make sure that's an exception versus the rule. And so I think knowing that those are the pieces that we need to do, we can focus there.
Yep.
Things happen sometimes and
course.
it's okay, but generally we got enough to go move forward.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Yep.
on this item, is there anything else you need from us?
Not now, as we go deeper into what this looks like. We do have some, I go back to the December discussion at the strategic workshop. We did have some metrics on the board that we were provided. We will make sure that those are integrated and confirm again before we move forward into the finalizing what this looks like.
Perfect.
That we have that conversation as well.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
cool.
Yeah, great work.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. So the next component, or the third of the fourth, is the district to member communications and getting some clarity there. So we already have an operational communications cadence that is more focused on the day-to-day chain of command, if you will, from the executive team, operations chief, assistant chief, shift commanders down into the stations, and then each branch chief down throughout each of those branches. And so when we talk about member communications, it's everybody. And we want to make sure that the new or the improved structure complements the operations communication plan, but also expands on what that looks like so that we can get it right. So the entire membership is hearing as they should from our district, whether that be through the executive level or any of the managers or things like that. So, so this is more of a, to put a term to the component, it focuses on more enterprise level organizational communication. So we have consistency there across all the branches. So there's some consistency, but there's different receivers of information. There's different needs for the different branches, and or obviously our largest component being operations. There's needs at the fire station. We want to make sure gets to the fire stations consistently, right? So that's part of this. So the scope would be including aligning the communications across all the branches, integrating with the current ops plan and improving it, implementing the member feedback loop, which we heard last time too, and then wanted to make sure we definitely captured that was the intent, to incorporate that into member communications. That is some level of unfiltered directly back to the district or to the executive level. And really that's one of the questions is, how does that look? Could you give some more depth to that if need be, or are we tracking down the right pathway of changing how we enterprise communications through the different branches, the different receivers, but also the feedback and how that comes back up without the filter, to paraphrase. So I'll stop there.
Director Weber, any thoughts?
Yeah, yes, thank you. And so the branch issue, I just want to make very, very clear. Part of that branch is 522 being in that communication loop.
Yep.
So we're all aligned with the constant messaging that not only the line receives, but the public as well. But it's imperative that, I can't stress it enough, that 522 is in as many meetings as we can get them in, so they understand what you folks are doing. So when you say, no, that's impossible, they're not being surprised on it.
Yeah.
And the same thing with what you're speaking about right here is, I want 522 and the management to be saying the same message.
Right.
That is my goal. And so if we can attain that through involving those into all of these meetings that you're now speaking about this subject matter, I think that would help as well.
Okay.
So,
Chief, if I may, so to kind of
yes, I'm
piggyback
finished.
on Director Weber, I just want to make sure we're answering your question. So it's really how we communicate to the organization.
Yep.
Right. Because that is a gap. So we need to make sure we're doing a lot of great things. Let's communicate that out. And then your question was, how does that communication come back?
Yeah, the feedback loop we wanted to make sure that if there's examples of that or more specifics that needed, we'll work on some options on what that would look like. But
Okay.
if there was more specifics, we understand that it's not just about us sending communications out, it's also hearing back and what that looks like to
Absolutely.
make sure we're addressing what someone in the fire station needs to hear, or somebody, that has a gap in information down at the folks doing the work in logistics or any of our areas of the membership, right? So that there's
absolutely.
that feedback loop.
Right.
But that making sure that's part of what you were intending for us. That's where that question came from.
Absolutely. I mean, I think communication one way is not going to work. We're going to need that loop. So it's listen up, follow up. And so I appreciate the way you've laid it out. I think it's important that we communicate to everyone in this organization what we're doing. And we get feedback from the men and women in this organization. As far as examples, if I may, just can you take a shot at putting some of those together for us? So we
Yeah.
can have something to work from? Okay.
Yeah, we'll dig deeper into that now here in that confirmation. Absolutely. And then this is, again, it's important. There are communications through that operational communication cadence that are, need to be out there quickly. This is an addition to that, right? It's complementing that, but it's not replacing it.
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah, thank you
there's
for
that part too.
clarifying that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so you're getting some feedback. You have your next steps. Any resource related issues or anything else that you may need?
They're coming, I'm sure. But right now, I know as we get through this fourth one and we can talk holistically about all four, not yet, but we'll see by the end of, I think Jeff's going to talk about the fourth one here, and then we'll maybe dive into that a little bit more. I don't want to put the cart before the horse.
Oh, yeah, I appreciate
Good
that.
for
Thank
now.
you.
Yeah.
Okay. And really quick, Jeff, before I turn to you, Director Weber, any other questions or are we going down the path that you?
No, again, that's a goal. And just to hop on that, just one, but the feedback coming back is exactly why 522 needs to be involved in that, not only from the chain of command coming back up through the ranks, but 522 they have meetings all the time and communication. So that can be an avenue for it to come back as well as the division managers coming back up through that
Yeah.
flow chart.
I wrote down consistency in messaging to members, but also messaging coming back from members. Yeah. Okay.
We need to know what's going on out there, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Jeff.
Project number 4, external engagement. Truth be told, I have been working on this one for many years. I still have questions myself. So I will start with maybe an update. Again, I said define the problem, define success, create the solution, implementation. The solutions, we actually do a lot of work in external engagement. There are actually 6 work plans from the PIO to public education, to government relations, to econ dev, and then a couple of other, we do a lot. All of those plans originate from the group. They are not consolidated. They are not aggregated. They might be written down in some part, but the effort in its totality does not come back to a central location. So I think that sets up for me the problem statement. It's not that we're not doing things, and it's not that we're out there doing good work. We have no way to get that information out of the systems that we have and get it back to the board in an understandable, measurable way. And I will tell you, we are so much out in the community doing the work. I don't know how we would centralize. I draw back from in my previous jobs doing this work. I think you have similar experiences, President Costa, where we don't have that core centralized communication team that drives strategy and content, but we're out doing the work. And a lot of the work we do is in person. So that's how I would define the problem. Really, what that means is we would have to go do one-on-one interviews with all of these teams, figure out how to create a standard understanding of the work. And there are a number of complications from there. Who are the messengers? What are their content? What are the channels? How do we do the work? What is the intent of the messaging? Those type of things. So this project in particular is pretty multifaceted, and there will be a lot to unpack. But I think the core of the problem is, again, the information doesn't come to a central source, so therefore it can't be digested and provided to the board. That's my working theory. I think success, I've done a lot of homework in other agencies, fire districts, but certainly local governments. The metrics are pretty common and standardized across most local governments in the communication realm. So I think we can pull from that and figure out how to combine these metrics for the board. I will tell you, we do have a number of outcomes that the board noticed, including expanding the Citizens Academy program to 2 a year, increased fire station open houses once every 2 months, regular participation in jurisdictional meetings, and then increase awareness and support for Measure O projects. So that's easy for us to implement and put into one of these work plans. And we can do that. I think that will be the low hanging fruit, is to report back on those. But again, I'm not entirely sure it takes care of the board's issue. So I'll stop talking there. That's where we're at.
Director Weber, any comments?
You have any ideas on how we could centralize that?
Yeah, and we're working on that. I will tell you that Chief House and Chief Mitchell have already started to move on that to approve. Our intent is to take, using the crawl, walk, run analogy, we're going to crawl first, collect information, digest it, and then we'll continue to bring that back as we make progress.
Keep growing from there. Okay, thank you.
When you and I have talked a lot about this because this is a passion of mine. And I do feel like there's a there. I'm not quite sure what yet. And so it sounds like we're working on something. We have some ideas. But I really look to staff to say, here's what we're doing and here's what we could do. And here's the gap. And I know this does not necessarily answering your question, but I definitely think something needs, I think we're talking about priorities here. The external engagement is a huge piece of what we should be doing.
Okay.
And I think the men and women of this organization show up every day and do great work, and the community loves it. We need to communicate that more, right? And I think we need to leverage the board. And so I think part of this process is how do we leverage the board who's in the community? And maybe there's an opportunity for, I definitely think to your point, we don't have a central location, and that's priority number one. I think we need to figure out how we get that. And so to my earlier question, what resources do we need? What resources do we have that we can leverage? And if not, what resources do we need? And I think the board needs to really think about that and how do we get those resources? So
And we do need resources. Like I said, we are so busy in the communities trying to keep up with the programs we have. We do not have these resources. We don't even have, I think about titles like communication media officers or communication officers or those type of professional folks we do not have in this organization. And I would tell you, I would be happy to do the work. I would have to get to summer or fall. Right now with preliminary budget and the number of capital projects through Measure O we're trying to manage, we do not have a lot of bandwidth in-house to start to define this problem.
okay. And I think this, if I may, really quick, I think this is a prime example of we have great men and women here doing great things, but they are resource constrained. I mean, there's only so much time in the day.
Yeah.
And that includes you. And so I do think this is a priority. And I think the board, just through the process has identified this as an opportunity. And so part of that is I think we need to, as a board, lean in. And so I think let's think about what resources you might need. And I think it's less add to staff. It's really, if there's somebody at, some sort of firm that we can use to help us bridge that gap, I think it's necessary. And to your point, everyone's out there every day doing the work. We still need to communicate that. And so I look to you guys to say, hey, we need this resource. Here's a gap. Here's a potential resource. And board, what do you need? So I think that's part of my recommendation back to you is let's figure what that looks like.
And we will. And thank you for that feedback. Absolutely. I would just take that to the next level as well. And as I'm thinking about what that could look like down the road as this, whatever this is, and we'll figure that out. It also impacts the other three areas that we're talking about here, right? It would be a force multiplier for us to have the consistency in messaging we're speaking about. Having this resource helps us address part of that as well. And I'm just going to use the central hub. It's the central hub with many branches, but having that is something, and we'll come back with some recommendations there for sure, and what support level we're going to need to get there. So.
Yeah, Director Weber. Yeah.
Another untapped source, and I'm not saying to implement this, but certainly think about it, is the community is extremely important to all of us, but certainly to the board. The untapped resource that we're not talking about is the rank and file. Is there an opportunity there to have more engagement as well? And again, just a thought for you folks to think about, but when you and I were working the line, we did a lot of community service work.
Yeah.
So just a thought.
Okay. Thank you.
Sir.
Thank you. This is a great conversation. One of the things what I'm hearing, and there's some great stuff coming out of this meeting, and I do appreciate it. There is no one more externally focused than Local 522. That is what we do. That is why we're here. That is why we attacked Measure O. That is why we attacked the city of Rancho Cordova. That is why we have these relationships and what we do. When I looked at the presentation of Measure O, it was used the term community partner. We are the community partner. So please understand that this is something that obviously there's an ebb and flow at times of how things go in relationships and communication, and we're trying to address that. But do not underestimate Local 522's external engagement
Mhm.
and how we are the community partner of this agency, and we want to be successful in the community. First and foremost, our members believe in delivering the service, whether it be in the fire engine, the ambulance, CRRD, our investigators, our mechanics. It is a level of service that's second to none. And throughout, I'll say even in 522, it is an amazing organization. But please do not underestimate Local 522 as the partner in the external engagement. Thank you.
Perfect. Can I
Thank you,
ask you a
President
quick
Jameson.
question?
Appreciate that.
All right.
No, I was just, thank you for coming up and saying that. Appreciate that input. Thanks.
So how could we work with you more or utilize your team more in this venue?
I think it's making, like I'm going to go back to those labor management meetings, and let's have the right people in the room. We have resources. The department has resources. I think at its perfect time, as we saw some of that come together with Measure O, we have to find a way to kind of get back to that communication where we focus together, we put a plan in place. It was a lot of work. We're not afraid of work. I'll tell you that right now. We are not afraid of work. Give us the work, give us the opportunity, meet us in the middle, and we'll find the solution. I know that. So I think it's agendizing at the meeting, having the right people in the room. And I will, as the president of Local 522, work with my team to make sure that we do the same thing. But we've got to get back to that.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
You're
Thanks for
welcome.
taking the time.
Thank you.
Yeah, your feedback. So Chief,
Excellent.
yeah, we got what we need. Jeff, is there any other feedback here?
That's
Okay.
the feedback we need, and I will echo that point. I mean, we were at our best when we did the Zinfandel outreach and engagement and
Mhm.
partnered with 522 and CPF, and then with Measure O.
Yeah.
That is the gold standard, and I agree we need to get back there.
And I think just to add to that, it's writing it down to make it our culture and how we do business so that it's consistent over time. It's not just for Measure O. It's not just for whatever one-off. It's how we do business.
Mhm.
And again, thank you for coming up, President Jameson, and saying that. That's ultimately what this looks like, and we can get there pretty dang quick. We've shown it in the past. So thank you.
Okay.
Great conversation.
I think, so we've had 4.
Yep.
And so now part of that question is, how do we prioritize these 4?
Mhm.
Okay. Do you want to walk us through, what do you need? Well, I guess, let me take a shot at this.
Sure. You want
Any-
the 4 again, just to?
No.
You good? You
Any
got it?
direction
Okay.
we go, I think until we try it, we won't know if it's going to work, right? So let's try. We fail, pivot, try again. So I don't think any priority matters. I will just say it seems like the board's direction has been, how do we confirm or how do we ensure we strengthen our relationship with 522 and our partners? How do we ensure we're communicating appropriately? So I'll just take a quick stab. I think the labor management piece is going to be key. And then how do we communicate to the board is going to be key, those two. Because we need to make sure we're working and communicating with our partners, and the board needs to be aware.
Mhm.
And I think that's been an opportunity that I've seen that I think we can improve on. After that, I would say how we communicate internally is going to be important. That's really going to come out of those meetings. The external engagement, it's a passion of mine. I think it's a significant area of improvement. But I think given that, we're going to need some resource allocations to do that. So I'll just put out there, I think we need to start, how do we improve the relationship with our union partners? And then how do we communicate from the executive staff to the board to keep the board aware of that? Director Weber, do you have any thoughts?
No, I agree. I agree 100% with that.
Is that helpful?
Perfect.
Yeah, and a lot of them, again, we complement each other. So the
Absolutely.
good news is, as we go through these, they're going to help build the rest of it, right? So yeah,
Absolutely.
I think we're good.
And I think it's important to keep in mind, we can only do so much.
Yeah.
So part of this is we'll focus, and I think please rely on the executive committee and the board to lean in and help. And at any point in time, if we feel like a resource is necessary, if we haven't identified one, let's raise our hands so we can do it right.
And I think by the next meeting, we'll probably come back with some ideas on how you can move
Perfect.
some of these things along.
Perfect.
Or at least help us move things along.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
great conversation, great feedback. I think we're doing a lot of great things. I'm looking forward to the next conversation on it. So we have one more item, the preliminary budget. Dave O'Toole.
Good evening, President Costa, Director Weber, Chief Mitchell, colleagues, members of the public. Yeah, real briefly, I was just going to go over given the conversation we just had, what is the budget context that we're in at this moment? So I'm just going to go over the preliminary budget process first. So of course, we have 3 budget processes. We have the mid-year, which we will perhaps finish up tonight when the board considers the mid-year budget. And then we have the preliminary budget, which I'm about to tell you about, and then the final, of course, which occurs in August and for final adoption in September. The preparation process for the preliminary budget begins with a kickoff where the executive team and the budget managers, division managers all get together in a room and talk about context. Talk about 3 things, really. Talk about the budget context, which this year was restrained. We don't have a ton of money left sitting around to be able to invest a lot next year in fiscal year 26, 27. We talked about, I explained the process to submit budget, which also included the system that we use, the IT, that's an Oracle system that we use, and kind of tricks and things to be aware of as you're doing that. And then lastly, I talked about the division narratives, which is it's like a writing lesson on how we can improve our writing in that. So that was the kickoff meeting on February 23rd. That was followed up. The next deadline is actually tomorrow, where those requests to go into our budget system are due to finance. And then we'll have 10 days after that, on March 23 and 24, all the division managers will individually go before the executive team and explain what's in that budget document they submitted, as well as a few other things. They'll also cover any staffing requests, which come in the form of position request forms, colloquially known as PRFs, budget request forms for specific items that fell outside of the Oracle system, the normal services and supplies requests, any CIP requests, they'll talk about that, and then any overtime authorization requests. So those are the 5 things that the division managers will be talking to the executive team about. And then kind of following that process, and take a step back, those BRFs and PRFs that I mentioned, budget request forms and position request forms, they were due to the Office of the Fire Chief on February 22nd. So those were kind of collected and then are being reviewed and again presented on March 23 and 24. So the next major dates in the preliminary budget process are April 24th. Divisions will submit those narratives, those writing lessons I mentioned, to finance for the budget report, so we can start to compile that narrative piece. April 27th, staff, mostly planning and development, HR, finance, and operations will get together to look at an initial pad, just making sure that we're on the same page. Everyone understands what is the position number here. Does everyone agree on the position number? And then so that's kind of a basis, so we can consider. So we have the basis, and we can consider the changes to it. So we do that on April 27th. Okay. May 5th, the executive staff meets to review the preliminary budget and the preliminary CIP together. That's sort of an important deadline on May 5th. I'll present a proposal, planning and development, usually Aaron Castleberry present the capital improvement plan to the executive team. We'll have discussions, and that mostly wraps it up. There's usually some questions that follow up, but we're in a pretty good state around that time to start to prepare it for the first hearing, which is preliminary budget and CIP go to finance and audit on May 28th. And then the last deadline in this process is June 11th, where the prelim budget and CIP go to the full board. Just one thing I would also want to mention too is processes for the board to provide input. Of course, the board can provide input at any time. You make budget amendments at any time. I mentioned the 3 budget processes, those are the obvious ones, but just to kind of drill down to that a little bit, to be like, if the board is interested in being consistent with the processes that I just mentioned, like I would use maybe 75 days before the Finance and Audit Committee would be the time where everything is new and untouched. So for prelims, you back up from that May 28th day. So we're really talking early March. That's the point that we're in right now, where where requests are coming in. That's typically, that's where the divisions will make their requests. So 75 days before prelim, final, and mid-year, it's about 45 days before. So the timelines are a little shorter, but the prelim is the big budget. That is the one where we're putting the most time in, where we're really doing our level best to get the budget as perfectly as we can. So when July 1 hits, we've got a good budget in place. And the final, just like the mid-year, really tweaks on that. The changes should be relatively small. So that's just a quick go. Spent a lot of time on this, but it's a quick overview, the prelim budget. Any questions you may have?
Perfect. Any questions?
Yes, Dave. So as you're aware, we're paying closer attention to a lot of things. That I inquired about the board's budget recently. The board is interested in our own budget. We're essentially our own division managers as well. I think it would be prudent to have one of us in those meetings as well to discuss our own budget. As far as I know, nobody has ever done that before. And so that's why we are going to do that. It's not actually a request. So, so thank you so much. Yeah, we want to have more input with our own budget as well. So thank you.
I see Jeff. Yeah.
I do want to mention a new ad this year specifically related to the position authorization document. Typically, that is included in the budget. It's kind of buried in there. Due to a new law, we will be presenting that separately. In accordance with the new law, it basically states what are the efforts to recruit and retain personnel. And there's a threshold in the law. If we are over 20% vacancy, there are some additional requirements that would allow labor to weigh in on the need and how to fix it. If we're under that, we still have to report. So what we would ask is we will give that report at that time and ask the board to approve the position authorization document separately from the budget, similar to what we do to CIP. So that will be new this year due to the law
Okay.
change. Mhm.
Perfect. Thank you. Dave, sorry to come. Sorry. And more, this might be more for Chief.
Yeah, I go ahead, because I think you might, I just wanted to, based off of what Director Weber said, I want to make sure we have clarity on, because the preliminary budget meeting is the time that the changes are presented. At what point and how does the board that you are given direction on when you engage in that process? But I think maybe that's where you were going to ask. So
Yes.
I'll make sure we get clarity there.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And that's right. Thank you. Thank you. And that's right, Dave. So the board has a budget. So how can the board participate in that process? And it sounds like it's the preliminary component. Is that correct?
Yeah,
Well,
go ahead.
The normal process is kind of as I described, is where the divisions would come in and talk about their budget. That is the next opportunity. And I don't know if the board is on the 23rd or 24th. I don't have that in front of me, but March 23rd or 24th.
Sorry. Thank you.
So
Jeff.
Sorry, tomorrow, as Dave mentioned, entries are due in Oracle, so I'll be making entries in that. So if you have anything that specific that you want me to add.
Okay. That would be our opportunity
Mhm.
tomorrow. Okay.
So if I
Yeah.
may,
Yes, please.
we have a little time. So
Okay,
I think the board clerk and I had a conversation about this topic with some new intent, obviously from the executive committee. I'll talk to the board clerk about how we reach out to the board. It can come from myself or her.
Mhm.
And then we'll ask for budget requests. That is
Perfect.
typically how we would work with staff. And then we will work that to put that into your budget. And then from there, I will work out probably through this executive committee, how we have a dialogue about that budget. And I'll follow up with you all
Perfect.
in that time. But we've talked about a new process to capture your needs.
Okay. Thank you. And I want to make sure, as you indicated, that the board has an opportunity to provide feedback on things that they think we should be leaning in on, and utilizing that portion of the budget for that purpose. And I do think, given what we talked about in a strategic plan, there's an opportunity there too for the board to lean in. If we have a budget, it gives us the ability to lean in on some of these requests that are coming forward as far as contracts or outside help on the communication side. I think we should do that. So then we can work with you, Jeff, on that. And then you'll make sure the other board members have feedback on the process. Okay. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you, Dave. So Chief,
Yep.
So I guess next steps on this item is we want to make sure we have visibility
Yep.
as a board as far as the budget, what's in that budget, and what opportunities we might bring forward, I think, and then engaging all the board members on that.
Yeah, so in the specifics of what currently is shown in the preliminary budget on the board, we'll get it to you quickly. And then the feedback part of it, and to what Jeff said, and I know with our new process and the direction is we have a little bit of time to do that. So we want to make sure that the rest of the board is aware of the input part of this new process.
Okay.
And then we can get that entered so that we can move it forward. And Jeff will work with Marnie directly on making sure that happens here in the next couple of weeks. And the board budget review meeting is the 23rd, Monday, the 23rd.
We have some time.
So we have a little bit of time. And then to your point, Director Weber, of making sure somebody's there, we'll make sure that invite, it goes out to yourself, and then however we want to do your representation there to make sure that somebody's there
Okay.
to be part of that discussion, to get clarity if we need.
Okay. And I think, again, this is just a question on the new potential process.
Yeah.
I do think the board should be more involved and given an opportunity to provide some feedback. So
Excellent.
thank you for that.
Got it. Thank you.
And then Marnie will work with you to make sure we provide that. And then Jeff will work with the rest of the board to get their feedback. Great. Thank you.
Should we nominate somebody now because they're not here?
Yeah. You might want to give it a little bit of thought. Yeah. Okay. Very good. Thank you, team. I know this is a long meeting, a lot of great information, a lot of good input. So thank you. I think we're making great strides. Please don't hesitate to reach out if you need any assistance or if you have any feedback, please. And with that, it brings us to the end of the meeting. Our next meeting is April 9th. Meeting adjourned.